Joining us now is Congressman Spano, a Republican serving Florida's 15th congressional district. So, Congressman, we see today some developments seeing that the small business programs may finally get some funding. It looks like the two sides have come together to some degree in order to get some money back into that program, which was successful, hence the reason why it's now out of money. What's been your take on this whole process and now the end result of what we're getting?
Yeah, well, thankfully, we're at a point now where it looks like we're getting a deal done. The deal should have been done 2 weeks ago, frankly, but the Democrats and Pelosi have played politics, as she usually does. But the American small businesses and the paychecks, as those represent, have been in a need for a couple of weeks. The program has been incredibly successful, and we need to plus it up as soon as possible.
And when it comes to these type of programs, too, of course, this all started with a $2.3 trillion, I'll call it stimulus package, that was designated to get money in the hands of people who are going without paychecks at the very moment, but also for small businesses, too, so they could keep some of their workers on their payrolls as compared to putting them back on unemployment or something like that. Is that something that maybe we're going to see a little bit more of as we move ahead, or should this effort right now be the last one until maybe things open back up again?
I think we'll see. I mean, there certainly is a demand for it, much more than we thought. Some expectations and projections are that this additional $300 billion is going to be used up within 48 hours.
Right.
So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I hope that we don't need an additional funding, but I think time will tell. I think it's certainly been absolutely necessary, as you mentioned. We'd rather have people on payroll and be in a position to begin to do business again, rather than have them, muck up the already crowded reemployment programs around the country.
Right, and a reason why they're doing this, too, is for that very reason, to prevent people from going on those unemployment programs. The idea is to keep them on the payroll so they can get the benefits, and once again, once things open up, that they can get back to work. And to what you're saying right now, we've heard PNC banks saying that they may not have enough money to give out the loans to everybody who's requesting it. That's a testament to how successful this program has been, but there still are some concerns about whether or not this will be enough. So procedurally, how does this work? Does it go to the banks who then give money to small businesses in order to kind of streamline the process? Is that the way that this works?
Yeah, well, the money, yes, absolutely. The banks have the ability to fund these loans, but they have to get approval through the SBA, right? The SBA is giving them authority to make the loans, but there's a pot of money, an additional $300 billion that would be made available, and it's first come, first served, right? There's been some concern among some of the, frankly, the smaller employers around the country that they weren't able to get access to those funds. I'm hopeful that will not be the case this time around. There's been a $60 or $50 billion that's been allocated specifically for smaller lenders. So we're hopeful that that will make its way to some of the really, really small employers around the country.
That's good news right there, because as I was saying, there's a lot of people right now who are going without paychecks for the time being, and it's very scary. I mean,
that's right.
It's a hard thing not knowing how you're going to pay your rent next month, especially since we've already passed the beginning of the month in April, and we have another one coming up right now. So it's a hard time for a lot of people.
That's right.
But I do want to talk about the procedure aspect of this as well. Last time when there was that $2.3 trillion stimulus package, one of your colleagues, Representative Massey, voiced some concerns about the idea that there was no debate on that topic, that people weren't necessarily even in quorum, that there weren't enough lawmakers there. Do you think that it'll be another type of thing when it comes to this vote, as a lot of people are saying that it may be a voice vote?
I don't think it'll be a voice vote in the House. I think you'll see that in the Senate, but in the House, we've been advised actually on a conference call this morning with leadership that we do expect to take a roll call vote. So I think we'll all be on the board this go around, which I think is probably a good thing. And I think the members of my conference anyway are getting a little bit uncomfortable about doing business in this way. We need to kind of get back to business as usual. I will tell you that Nancy Pelosi would like to go to something called proxy voting. That's something that she's been pushing for over this process. I do not think that's a great idea. We've been doing this for 200 years this way, and any kind of attempt to go to a proxy vote has got to be deliberated, I think, with bipartisan effort. So, healthy debate on any issue is a good thing. So let's have a roll call vote. Let's have members have the ability to debate. These are large numbers we're throwing around, having long-standing implications and consequences for the nation. So we need to have the ability to have the vigorous debate on these issues.
And you say voting right now, and that was actually something that initially a lot of people were speculating was holding up this progress to begin with. A lot of people saying that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wanted reforms on voting when it comes to elections, not just when it comes to your chamber voting on these types of pieces of legislation. But you also mentioned the idea of opening up the economy once again, and that's what this all comes back to, is sustaining people until we can get once again open up businesses. How do you think that process should be evaluated? Do you think it should be a regional, state-by-state approach? Do you think that's the way to go?
Yeah, I've always said from the very beginning that these decisions about shutting down and now reopening are better made on a local and state level. I think the president has provided fantastic leadership in terms of guidelines and whatnot, and he's prodding and encouraging governors around the country to open up as soon as possible. And I agree with that because I think every day that we're shut down, the more difficult it is going to be to able to climb out of the hole that we've gotten in. And I think, but frankly, we were in a strong position economically when we got into this. God forbid we would have been in this position when Obama was the president. Lord only knows where we would be. But thankfully, the president had us in a good position. I think it's going to be a matter of months to get back to where we need to be rather than years. But yes, we need to get this economy open as soon as possible. And those decisions, I think, are made best by the governors around the country.
And to that point, we've heard governors say that at the end of the month, they're going to start making that decision. In fact, we may see it even sooner. We've heard that Florida, states like Georgia are already considering opening their economies even before that point. So we should see some people getting back to work in the near future, and that should give us a little bit more guidance about that funding that you were talking about. But Representative Spano, always a pleasure having you on. Thanks very much for coming on and breaking down this issue.
Thanks so much. Good to be with you.